All right, here we go. We're back. We're back in this piece. So, I got put onto this documentary, right? And it's The Last Narc. Yeah, I believe it's The Last Narco and not The Last Narc. Right, but it could be The Last Narc. I believe it's The Last Narco. And I got put onto it by Brendan Schaub, right? He was talking about it. Yo, man, you got to check it out. It's the freaking The Last Narco. Let me just make sure. I want to say, because it's on Amazon Video. And so far, like, yo, it's good, right? So let me just make sure that it's Narc and not Narco. So The Last Narc. All right, so it's The Last Narc. And so I started watching it, right? And you just see, you figure out right away that it's violent. The Last Narc, it's about like the Mexican cartel during the rise of the first, I guess maybe this is the first Mexican cartel. And one of the, as the title, I guess, undercover, and they find out, I guess, who he is. He gets targeted, and then they torture him. And they torture him for like 36 hours. And then as he passes out, like if he pass out, then they got doctors there, and they'll administer some type of medicine that'll bring him to, and then that way they can keep the torture going. And it was like, man, like, yo, man, is it just that crazy? Like human nature. And one thing that you see is the FBI, or the Mexican police, the Mexican army, they were using these torture sessions and strategies on you can't even call them convicted, just perpetrators or the opposition. Like they were using extreme force, right? And so like before we actually get into the meat that is just human nature and violence, right? All right, so you look at this stuff. You look at Kiki was his name. You look at Kiki, right? But before Kiki, this is what the FBI was doing. So they're torturing people and using all of these crazy tactics to get information out of people, right? So of course the people are going to use these same type of tactics on other people, right? And like I even look at racism in the black community. I look at it this way because life is a mirror, right? You're only reflecting what is happening to you. So in your life, and remember I talked about how I just didn't see rape, right? Because it wasn't happening in my immediate life. So I wasn't thinking about it. That doesn't mean that it's not happening around the world, right? We talked about how a lot of kids, when they're in those type of situations, what they will do. And I gotta turn this speaker off just in case I don't want any sounds, but it wouldn't matter if we got some sounds, right? But we see how certain students, they want to pass and they want to spread, they want to do to others as it has been done to them, right? Just pushing the narrative of life being a mirror. Like that's the whole idea. Life is a mirror, and you're projecting what has been done to you. So when we look at the black community, from my perspective, it's rough.
Let me introduce you to Bo Miles, a unique and likable guy. Everyday life, friends and family makes up the honest dream.
And people will say, well, not all. There are some good neighborhoods out there. There's some good neighborhoods. Like what? Like what neighborhoods are we talking about? You talking about middle class? You talking about rich? Right? So it seems like no matter where you go in America, if you go to the black part of town, it's gonna be rough. Now let's take Atlanta or even Baltimore. I'm sure there's some good parts. Like when I was growing up, there were some good blocks. There were some good blocks that you could go to, and you wouldn't have to worry about your safety as a black male. Right? Because there were some parts, if you're a black male and you go to the other males, they're gonna beat you up. Like you could get beat to death, you could get robbed. Like I remember just being in New York, and I was walking from it was like the Abyssinian. I want to say it was like the Abyssinian Church of the Nazarene, or some type of combination of Abyssinian and maybe Nazarene, or I'm not really sure how it was worded, but it was in Brooklyn, and the church was a good distance from the train station. And when I say a good distance, probably like maybe 4 or 5 blocks, right? You just hit 4 or 5 blocks. And then, so I'm walking, right? I'm walking from the church, and it's one black dude. He's looking at me, right? And I'm already like, all right, look, it's like a pit bull. Don't make eye contact. Let's just keep it moving. Like, yo, I don't know anybody in Brooklyn. I could have just got maybe the pastor and his wife. The pastor was out of town. I should have got his wife to walk me to the train station. Then this way the other black guys would have saw, like, yo, he's okay, he's cool, he doesn't want any smoke, he doesn't want any trouble, he's a musician, right? Like maybe if I had a shirt, they looking like the one, like I said, it's just one, he looking. I'm walking, right? So I see him kind of following me. You can't look back in those type of situations. You can't look back, because if you look back, you can't run. The only thing you got to do is just keep it like, look, man, I don't know anything. I don't know anybody. Let me just keep it rolling. So I'm walking, and as I pass the cars, that's when, like, so as a car pass, that's when I can turn and I can kind of get leverage, so I can look in buildings, I can look in the car mirrors, I can do anything. What I don't want to do is just blatantly turn around at them, right? So as I catch a glimpse, now it's like maybe 3 of them. They're walking, I'm walking, right? Before you know it, it's probably like 10. It's like 10 of them. And I'm close enough to hear them, like they're talking about me, right? Like, yo, who was that? Like, oh, no, I don't know him, la, 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 blah, blah, blah. I'm like, man. So I'm like, at this corner, man, I'm going to have to run. right? Because you could just hear it. You can just hear them growing in ants. They're growing in ants. Like, yo, man, yeah, man, we about to fuck them up. Like, oh no, don't fuck them up, please. Don't fuck him up. He's a good guy. He's just up here. He went to the church to meet the musicians. Like, he's not trying to sell crack in your neighborhood. I'm not seeing any of your girls. Like, look, man. So I get to the corner, and once I turn the corner, I got to put some pep in my step. And it's probably a good, like, once I hit the corner, I want to say that that the train station is it's close. It's probably maybe a good probably 2 blocks, right? Once you hit the corner, it's probably like 2 blocks. It could even be a block and a half, and then you're at the entrance. So once I hit that corner, like I really had to make way. I don't really remember running. I could have ran. I don't remember, but I would have, like, yo, it was no problem. Like, look, because I already knew what time it was. Like, I already knew what time it was. And that story, like that story that I just told y'all, that story will go down in Philly. That's the way it'll go down in Jersey. That's the way it'll go down in, like, West Baltimore, South Baltimore, East Baltimore, North Baltimore, like, Mississippi, Alabama, Texas, California. Like, yo, like, that's the way it goes. Why though? Like, why? And one of the things that I gotta remember, it sounds like if we go back to the 1800s, right? If you go back to you don't even gotta go back to the 1800s. We keep it real. If you go back to, like, the 60s, the 50s, right? You go back to the 50s, 70s, 80s, 90s, right? If you were black and you went into certain white neighborhoods, mainly it was Italians. Like, I'm familiar and personal with Italians and Sicilians, and I don't know if they're the same, but just growing up in Baltimore, like, we called them different. So I don't know. I guess I could just Google and see if Sicily is in Italy. Is it, like, I don't know, but but you had the Sicilians, you had the Italians. Like I said, I don't know why one is which, right? Let's go ahead and look it up, since I'm talking to you guys and hearing all of this. This is all when I was young, when I was a kid. I'm on 2 bars on my batteries. So okay, so Sicily is an Italian region. It's the largest island in the Mediterranean Sea, one of the 20 regions of Italy. So is Sicily its own country? No, it's not. Politically, it's just a smaller island. Unlike Italy or Italian, which is Latin based, Sicilian has an element of Greek and Arabic. So yeah, and that is consistent with my memory, right? So Sicilian was like Greek, right? So Sicilian is like Greek. It's around Italy. So I'm sure when they go into a town, they're gonna go into Little Italy, right? So the Sicilians are gonna move if they come into your city, and like I said, I'm talking like immigration. The Sicilians went probably into, like, Little Italy, and that's probably who they felt the most safe, and I'm sure they just moving around, right? It's close as in the islands. It's let's see, what is this showing? This image So where is Italy? So you got Tunisia is to the west, and then Naples is north. Where is Italy? Albania, Italy. So boom, we got Italy and Rome. So it's just a small island south of Italy, and it's close to like Tunisia and the coast of Africa, right? So where was I? Look, we had to get, because like I was saying, the Sicilians, they would beat you up. The Italians, like these guys, if you went through their neighborhood and you were black, like they was gonna beat you up. You know, like that's just the way it was. Like I remember even in middle school, that was the fear, was getting chased, because I went to Lombard Middle, and it was man, Lombard was crazy, because you had the projects, you had like maybe the four, it was surrounded by projects. Like right across the street was one projects, and that was Perkins. And that's where my boo, like my number one, like just I just really loved her as a kid. You know, you're just a kid, you don't really know what love is, but you think you do. So that's the one I thought I loved her, right? And I guess her name, it would rhyme, because some of these people, they don't want to be, people got lives, they ain't trying to get caught up in my story. So let's say her name rhyme with let's go with Iphany. Right, so she lived over in Perkins. That was right across the street. Then down the street, probably a mile to 2 miles. So let's say to the east was Perkins. To the west, so the east is Perkins. South would be like Flag. It was this project's high rise called Flag House. That's to the south. To the southwest is Lafayette. You got Lafayette project. Southwest. South is Flag. East is Perkins. West, right? Just regular west, you got Douglas, and you had Latrobe. Like it was just surrounded by different projects. So all of these projects are going to war with each other. And then I would say to the north, then you got Highlandtown, right? And you got Little Italy. Now it's all different now. A lot of these areas changed, but so no matter which way you was going, like yo, you just had a problem. Like no matter which way, it didn't matter if you like if you missed the bus. Oh man, like yo man, white boys gonna whip that ass if you going towards Highlandtown, right? You got the white boys, they're going to fuck you up. If you go south, you're going to get fucked up. Like, yo, there was nowhere you was going that wasn't going to happen to you. Right? Now, as we go back into the past, and this is in the 90s, right? And I'm in middle school, is in the 90s. You go into the past, and like I said, so if you go into Little Italy, boom, it's going to be a problem. Like, yo, they going to chase you. And I don't know for sure if this is where it started, but just looking at the mirror idea, all throughout America, if you were black and you went into a white neighborhood, like, yo, you was going to get beat up. right? It was going to be a problem. Yo, who are you? Right? We go further back. Yo, are you even legal? Did you escape? Right? We looking at that movie. What is it? 12 years or 7 years a slave? It just doesn't sound like it's 7. So it might be 12 years a slave. You looking at that. The whole idea is you're out in America and you're black and they like, yo, man, you could be a slave. You could be a runaway, right? I can get some money off of you. So no matter which town, and people didn't want you in there. And we got to acknowledge that the Alex Haley story roots, like that was made up. He made that up. He didn't know his great grandfather Kunta in that story. Like he didn't know any of that. He just made it up. But one thing we do know is it's gonna be propaganda, right? So at some point, because I want to say the Irish used to be the lowest of the white people. And so white people, they didn't like the Irish. It was either the Irish or the Italians, right? They was gunning for who was the lowest of the low. And the government, like once, so you got slaves in the South. They didn't have slaves in the North, right? But you still had to where it was like, right, you got these blacks, but they really didn't matter. They wasn't really competition. But you had your different Europeans came from all these different areas, right? So they were fighting amongst each other. And you could just, you get beat up, you go into the wrong neighborhood, right? So then the government said like, yo, we're all white and the Africans, they're black, right? So then you buy into this idea that, okay, so now, even though you're Italian, even though you're Irish, you're white. And you get to experience the amenities of being white. So you got Jim Crow law and you got segregation, you got all of these things, but all of you guys are now white. You're now white now. So, boom, you need a seat. If a black man is sitting down, like, yo, that's your seat now. Right. So people, they're buying into this idea of white and black. But before that, it was just fair game. It was fair game for everybody. It was, yo, nah, you Italian. Like, yo, don't contaminate the blood. Right. Don't let an Italian give you blood. Don't let an Irish give you blood. Don't let somebody from Scandinavia. Right. So like, that's how white people used to do it. And I'm not just saying that, okay, so violence comes from white people. Nah, nowhere near that, because we see violence everywhere. We see violence with the natives, the indigenous to this country. We see violence in Africa. We see violence all over. We see violence in Europe, right? So like we're seeing violence now. Like I said, you couldn't go into some white neighborhoods, and it's real weird because like you don't see that. I'm sure it's there. I just don't see it because I'm older, and usually that type of stuff is reserved for younger people. So younger, look, I hate to feel like this, but I feel like if I go into some black neighborhoods, like I'm gonna see it. Like, yo, they will, yo, who is that? And like, yo, fuck them up. Whereas I can go into those same white neighborhoods, whereas let's say my son, he can't go into it. Or if you're 13, it's some white neighborhoods that you can't go into. Now, I don't know that specifically now, because like I said, just where I am now, I don't see it. I don't see that type of, I just don't experience that anymore, right? But that doesn't mean that it's not there. I'm sure it's still there, right? But back when I was a kid, like it was prevalent. You could see it. It was all over. It was a lot of neighborhoods that you just couldn't go. You just couldn't go to. Like, yo, man, they gonna beat you up. You could get beat to death. Like, I know a couple people who got touched and was never found. Right? Like, they was never found. And it's crazy when you're a kid and you know that there's a kid who was never found again. And the last time y'all saw him, he was getting beat up by this group, by this gang. And that's it. Like the police, like, yo. So my whole point is that violence is happening all over the world, right? And it's like, yo, is that who we are as a people? Right? And this is the type of stuff that I was asking myself. Like, yo, is that who we are? Is looking at this documentary with Kiki, because it's like, damn, man. Like, yo, where's the humanity? And a part of me was like, that is the humanity. Like, you asking where the humanity, like, yo, you seeing it firsthand. Yo, this is humanity. Beating motherfuckers up is humanity. Right? Even these protests, you just saw these protests, and usually you guys will notice that I don't usually just touch on current events, just because there's enough people talking about it. Everybody has an opinion. So you really don't need my opinion on it. Right? So I usually just kind of graze or glaze over whatever the current event is, right? So I'm going to glaze over the Antifa and all of that. So they had one of these rallies or one of these get-togethers, and I think they were talking about cops. This wasn't Black Lives Matter. This was before Black Lives Matter. All the protests. And they were like, just cut his fucking throat. Slit his fucking throat. Like, slit his throat? Like, yo, man, are you serious? Slit his throat? Like, yo, there's no coming back. Like, death is finite. Right? Or life is finite. We have an amount of time. Death is infinite. There are, things that's been dead for a billion years. That's how long certain things have been dead, right? You figure the first inkling of life on this planet has been dead for over a billion years. And I don't even remember how old they say the Earth is, right? But whatever was the first being of life, whatever that was, it has been dead for over 2 billion years, right? So death, is it. That's it, as far as this physical plane. Some of you will have different ideas on other things, and we're not talking about that, right? So it's like, man, you talking about slit his throat, like not even giving him a chance to grow and change. But that's all you see. And another thing is that violence, it seems like it's around a certain age. Now, being in the schools, there was violence in first grade. I can't really say that I've seen violence in the first grade, or that I've experienced it as a kid. I didn't. Like, I remember just school and having a good time. I'm talking about from a perspective of a student, me being a student. Like, it was just a fun time. School was fun. School was cool. I didn't have any issues. I didn't have any problems with no other students. Usually you have a kid that's being pushed to a certain lifestyle. That's usually being pushed and guided on a path. of just aggressiveness and force. I can't say bad, right? Because I believe that language, and we'll get into that, but language has a lot to do with where we are right now and the progress that we're moving. Language has a lot to do, and language has slowed down a lot of things. It's propelled and helped us advance, but just like anything, right? The solution and the problem lives together. So there are students and kids at a young age that's being groomed for aggressiveness and violence. Young, look, hit him, do this, do that, right? Like just in the language is just real aggressive, and the behavior is rewarded. They reward certain behavior. Yo, he doing that? Yeah, that's right. Punch him, kick him. So it's weird. It's weird, but that's like, yo, that's life for some people, right? They're being pushed, they're being groomed, and their peers and their parents, they're proud. Yeah, my son, it's not going to be no pushover, right? Which 9 times out of 10, they were a pushover. They were chumps, and they felt humiliated. They felt whatever, and they like, yo, man, that's not going to happen to me. Like, I know that my dad was tough. He was the man in his day, around his way. Like, I know he was, because I remember this guy was bullying me, and I went to one of the older guys. I'm like, yo, man, you gotta teach me how to fight. You gotta teach me how to defend myself. And he was like, yo, just ask your dad. He was like, look, man, your dad, that's who we went to when it was go time, right? So I know that. So growing up, he really didn't stress that. Like, I remember being afraid of dogs, and so I ran in the house. I was over my cousin's house, and I ran in the house because they had like a big German Shepherd. I'm talking about, I'm probably like 5. I'm like 5'6". So I run in the house. This is summertime, and they got this big dog, and especially if you're 5 or 6, like a German Shepherd seemed like it's a horse, only a vicious horse, a horse with canines, right? This is a huge dog, way bigger than me, could kill me, right? And it's just crazy when you just think about perspective at those young, early ages. Some of you guys may remember, I remember climbing up on the sink, like climbing up on the counter, the kitchen counter, and climbing up to the cabinets to get cereal, get like Kicks, and to get sugar. And everything was huge, like everything was big. Like, I still remember that perspective of being a little kid and not being able to see over the kitchen table, right? Being just small. Like, I remember that perspective, and people seeming like giants, like kids, like 5th graders, seeming like giants. Like, I remember that. I remember it. Some people don't. I guess a lot of people don't, but I'm lucky in that sense that I remember. So the dog was huge, right? So my cousin, Terry, she, look, when it comes to this story, I'm not rhyming. You know, my cousin Terry, she was like, yeah, he ran from some boy. Like, oh man. So my dad, he wasn't trying to hear that. He like, yo, no son of mine is going to be raised. He gave me the Denzel. King Kong ain't got nothing on me. Shoot program. Like, he's like, so he was, look, nah, man, we're going to go out there. We're going to find him and we're going to fight him. Like, fight who? The dog? So he was tough. But other than that, he never pushed being tough on me. Like, other than just that That was the one time that he, made a big deal about me running. And like I said, like I didn't even run from a person, because at that age, you're not even thinking about running from people. Right? You're not even really thinking about it. But other than that, like, he really didn't push being tough and, look, you're going to beat these people up. If anybody say something to you, you're going to punch them in the mouth, and encouraging me, pushing me on. Yeah. Let's go find somebody weaker than you. You can beat them up and we can all congratulate you. Right? Like, that wasn't the deal. But there was one kid who stood out to me. His name is Erskine, or it was. Like, I don't know if he's dead or alive or what, or if he turned his life around, or I don't know. But he was definitely being groomed for aggressiveness and just a tough approach to life, a warrior's approach, I would say. He was definitely being groomed to be a warrior, to be a hood warrior, right? And I remember, like, in first grade, second grade, all of those times, like, things were cool. You really didn't have a problem. Yeah, he was bad, but he wasn't. I didn't experience him being violent towards any other kids. Like, I didn't. But you saw that he was bad and defiant and really not listening to teachers and stuff like that. And I want to say maybe it could have been third or fourth grade. I'm not really sure. It was probably like third or fourth grade. I'm around his way, right, in his neighborhood, and there's a whole bunch of guys out. And my cousin Tavon lived around there. So that's why I was even in that neighborhood, right? But I knew then, like, yo, you can't go into certain neighborhoods because they're going to try to beat you up, right? So I go to, see my cousin Tavon, but I don't think he was there, or maybe he was, and it was just time for me to go, right? So I'm going home. I see Erskine. He's around a whole bunch of guys, big guys. And I'm like, yo, what's up? He's like, hey, what up? And then he swings on me, right? So, like I said, it's a whole bunch of guys, but looking back, hindsight, you just don't know. I doubt that they would have jumped me, but you just don't know. You just don't know. You can't take the gamble, right? So he pulled my shirt over my head, and then he's punching me, right? And it's all Scooby snacks. But I know that you gotta cry, right? If you don't cry, then they just putting the beating on you to make you cry. So then I'm crying, but I'm not really crying. I'm just faking, right? All the big people, they're egging them on. Yeah, get him, Erskine, get him. And eventually, I guess he just got tired. He ain't had us. Come on, man. He don't got that fighter stamina. Like, yo, how long can you beat somebody up, dog? Huh? You're a pro. You're a pro at this, yo. What's your stamina like? Right? You throw a few punches, you kick. He was kicking me, stomping me, man. It was all light work. Then what? Eventually, you get tired, work up a sweat. He's like, yeah. Like, come on, man. Like, but all of his friends, all of the people that was around, like, yo, that was a good time. Yeah, dog. That's good. Right? That's good. Yo, you did a good job. You just beat him up. So this is fourth grade, right? Third or fourth grade. I don't even think it was fourth grade. It could have been, but I think it was like third grade. Could have even been second grade. Right? So he was definitely being groomed. But we're just talking about violence, and like, man, is this human nature? Like, man. And when we go back to what I was saying about, look, I can't say that he was raised wrong or that he was bad, right? Because it's that type of language that's used to justify violence. So if you're bad, then we can use violence, and you deserve the violence. right? Good, you can use, so if you're good, you can use violence to eradicate bad, right? So just that language is what's being used to propel and to sustain violence. We're the good guys, they're the bad guys. We got to go and fight evil, right? But all in all, it's just fighting. When we get to the last narc, you have the police or the government or the army. They're using these tactics. They're using torture tactics, and that's good. When the cartel uses torture tactics, then it's bad. Now we gotta look. This is they need to be eradicated. Like, yo, but they learned it from you guys. Like, yo, y'all don't see that they learned this behavior from you. This is what you did to them, and they're like, yo, so this is what we got to do. This is what we got to do to other people, right? Because they were able to get big whoever, right? Big Killer Kill. They was able to get Killer Kill to rat out the operation. He just like, yo, man, just stop torturing me. I'll tell you whatever you need to know. I'll tell you where they're growing it, who's making it. Like, yo, just stop, right? I'm not trying to go through all this pain. He's just trying to get them to stop. Here, let's, speaking of stop, we got to switch out these batteries. So let's stop it here and then we'll just come back. All right, where were we? Maybe the torturing, right? And just we're pretty much just talking about how life is a mirror, right? But ultimately, what we're saying is that the violence is, it's just, man, unfortunately, like, yo, this is just who we are. This is just who we are as a people. And if you look at the planet as a whole, there's life and then there's the struggle to live, right? And we're trying to look at this violence thing, right? Is it really a part of us forever? Right? So if we go back and we're looking at the planet, it doesn't matter what you believe. It doesn't matter what you believe as far as the creation and the beginning. That doesn't matter. What we have to acknowledge is that on this planet, life eats life. Right? Living eats something to survive and sustain itself. So if you're eating a plant, that plant was alive and you ripped it out of the ground, you biting it, you eating it, like, yo, it was alive and now it's not. Then we get to animals, right? Animals eat other animals. Like, there's just no way around it. Animals eat other animals. So we get to mammals, we get to humans, we get to whatever, however you want to look at it. Like, that struggle to live and to protect yourself, to fight off opposition. Like, that's just a part of life. It's just a part of life. It's a part of, no matter what you are, something will want to eat you, and you're going to have to, if you're smaller, look, you might have a bad day. Right? So no matter who you are, no matter what you are, something is trying to eat you. Something is sustaining itself off of you. So now, once you bring that element with you to society, to whatever, to a large group, like if we look at hunter-gatherers, look, you might got a jackal, you might got a leopard, you might have a lion, you might have a wolf, depending on what region you're in. You might have a bear. So many things that can kill you. So then now, I got to protect myself. How are you going to protect yourself? You're going to protect yourself with fire. You're going to protect yourself with weapons. We're not even talking about humans hurting each other. This is, look, that cat, that giant cat, he coming over, he hungry. I look like just a walking thing of meat. He's like, yo, man, nah, I'm gonna eat. We ain't eating, eh? Hey, we ain't eating, right? So he on his we ain't eating. He coming over. All right, yo, you want to eat me? Well, I'm gonna eat you. So you got to protect yourself. We're not even talking about other humans, but we're hunting, we're gathering, we're nomadic, we're moving from tribe to tribe, or not even tribe to tribe, but from place to place. Just moving with the food. We're either migrating with the food or we're migrating with the weather. One or the other. Right? Now, then you start to introduce people into the equation. Right? So we already established that violence is just a way. This is just how we survive. We survive with violence. I mean, that's crazy. That's crazy. Like that's how we survive. That's how we survive. That's how the mountain lion survives with violence. He's gonna kill the deer. He's gonna kill the human. He's gonna kill whatever he can kill to eat. So if he wants to make it to tomorrow, yo, you better have some violence in you, right? I mean, it's like, man. So we're talking. We're not even. We haven't even introduced people yet. So it's just one family out there, and already the violence is on 10. It's on 50-11. Now you introduce people. You introduce another member. And one thing that I've seen just growing up in Baltimore, one thing that I've seen is that the stronger you are, the safer you are. So if you can fight and you can beat all of these guys one-on-one, then the chances of them actually saying something to you individually is now non-existent. Like, yo, no one's going to challenge you. Nobody's going to say anything to you one-on-one. That's not going to happen. Right? Yo, you know how to fight. You cracked a few heads. If you big, we go back to the middle school days, right? If you big, if you like one of the bigger people, like, yo, that protects you from probably 85% of the school, right? So if you're in the 8th grade and you're in the top percentile as far as size and just muscle mass, like, yo, then you don't have no problems. You don't have no problems. You don't have to worry, like, yo, man, ain't gonna be no fighting. Now, they gang up. Yeah, it's kind of tough when you're taking on, 12. Even if you're taking on 3 is a challenge, especially if you don't really know how to fight, but you just got size. That's like, it was one of the dudes in the neighborhood. He had some nice weight on him, right? This is probably like around 12, 13. He had some nice weight on him. But I remember he got into a argument with one of the guys. Now, he wasn't a part of our group. He was like an individual, right? So in gang life, let's say you got 3 different opposing gangs, right? So you got 3 different gangs, but these 3 gangs will join together when needed. So if the situation calls for it, these 3 gangs will come together and they'll take on a larger situation, right? And you can even look at war in Middle Ages and just kind of see like the same pattern. You can see the same pattern and know like, all right, this is how it went even back then. It doesn't matter what time it was in history. Like, it's the same thing. It's the same people, the same species. And this is how they handle their differences. So in your gang, so now we're looking at my gang, my personal gang that I'm affiliated with, right? You look at them now in the neighborhood and just around, because I want to say that we probably occupied maybe a 5-mile radius. I want to say, it was probably like a 5-mile radius that we occupied. Now, within that 5 miles, the majority of us live a mile, not even a mile. The majority of us lives probably less than a mile apart, right? That's the majority of us. So, but you got other people that's living within that 5 miles, right? They're cool. Like, they're cool. They're not a part of the gang, but we're not beating them up. We're not messing with them. We're not causing any problems. They're not a part of our gang, but they still have the amenities of our gang, right? Like, nobody's coming in the neighborhood and messing with them, and certain things just not gonna, like I said, like, nobody's coming in there and taking over, right? They would have to deal with us. So those type, you have people who live in this neighborhood, but they're not a part of our gang. So, but what will happen is, let's say there's another gang. So there was another gang that was, that I would say neither one of us would be a sister gang to the other, but we would form like Voltron if we had to. If we needed to be 100 deep, like, we'll connect, we'll link up. That's how it was. And like, we all went to the middle school. We were called Up Top. So like I said, I told y'all about all of these projects. You got these, these different projects. You got the white gang, you got little Italy, you got the Sicilians, you got all of that just surrounding this middle school. Well, we didn't come from the projects. None of us lived near any of those projects. We didn't live around in Little Italy and none of that, right? So we were up top. That means that, look, we're far from each other, but we're closer to each other than we are to any of these projects. So if we had to, that's when we would form. Everybody from up top, we gonna form, and like, y'all not, none of the project boys is going to play any of those games with us. Like, that's just not how it's gonna happen, right? But they had their own, but they had their own gang. Like, once you got up top, then there's the divide. But because we all went to the middle school, we was cool with each other. Like, we not gonna fight each other for the most part, right? And if there is a fight, then it's just gonna be a straight up fight. And we going back to being cool with each other, because come Monday, we're gonna have to go to school, and like, we're gonna need each other, right? So you had those alliances. So one of those gangs, right, gets into it. It was probably only like 3 of them. It was like 3 of them. They get into it with just somebody who's in the neighborhood, right? He's not part of our gang, but he's still cool. We all know his name, and he's cool. He got nice size on him. Like, yo, he definitely. I mean, I never really looked at him as a threat, but I mean, hey, he could have been a threat, So he gets into it. It's probably like three guys. So it's looking good in the beginning. I want to say maybe it was a little bit of wrestling, or just the other guy maybe was trying to throw some hands. But then what happened is, he like maybe pinned the guy to the car, right? So the guy has his back. The guy's back is to the hood of the car. This random dude, or the dude who lives in our neighborhood, he's controlling him, but he's more just locked up with him. So what happened is one of the other guys from the opposing gang, because remember it's 3 of them, one of the other ones climbs on top of the car and start kicking him in his head. Right now he gotta curl up. He gotta ball up. He balls up. Well, tides change. Now they all just jumping on him. They smashing him. Right. So 1-on-1, like, yo, he would have beat any of those 3 guys. But him fighting 3 guys, he really didn't have no skill. So he didn't really know what to do. Like, yo, what am I going to do? Right. And another thing that's probably going through his head is like, yo, if I start bashing this guy or like really beat it, like, yo, what you would have to do in that situation, you got one. If you already got one and that there's other 2, like, yo, they're going to jump in. Like, yo, they going to jump in. Like, yo, so it's just a matter of time. So, yo, you can't wait. You can't wait for that. I'm not waiting for you to jump in. Like, yo, I need to dispose of this one now. So best case scenario is I dispose of him enough to where the other one's going to run and be like, yo, nah, I don't want no piece of that. That's the best case. Worst case is you dispose of him, then you got to dispose of the other 2. But that's better than taking on 3, right? So he really wasn't. He just wasn't about that. So he was like really just wrestling and controlling, not really trying to do damage, and they just did damage to him, right? So this story about, so we're talking about how you can be big and for the most part you're good, but once they start to increase the numbers, then you got a problem there, right? But if it's just 1 or 2 by themselves, like, yo, they always gonna run from you, right? So size and strength and all of that, like that can deter people. Because they're thinking like, yo, nah, man, he gonna beat me down. He gonna beat me up, right? So, but again, it's using violence. It's violence controlling. You're using violence to control the situation, right? And if we go back to looking at the mirror, like this is how it's been done. People have been using violence to control people for a long time. So what happens is that the new batch or the young batch or the opposition looks and like, yo, this is how they was controlling us. Yo, this is how I'm going to control them over there. Right. So look, I'm not going to be able to control this who has a greater opposition. Right. I can't control them with violence because they're controlling me with violence. Right. But maybe I can rebel. But all in all, you're looking at, yo, I'm going to just use this violence on somebody else. Right? So I sent out this question. And so I said, look, I'm going to be talking about violence. And is it human nature? and or necessary for our future as a species. Right? That was my statement. That was the question that I put out. Right? Is it necessary for our future? And is it human nature? Right? Now, one of the big homies, Boost, he said in the ideal world, violence is non-existent, as we are capable of handling our situations through critical thinking and logic. Right? So, in the ideal world, we don't have violence because we can think and talk, right? Reason out our differences. And he also says, we all agree that women should be allowed to vote, right? It seems absurdly apparent to suggest women shouldn't be allowed to vote in modern society. Most don't realize that women in the UK took to bombing buildings to get their right to vote. This world is not ideal. So I didn't know that women were bombing buildings in the UK. Like, yo, they wanted to vote, and look, we just gonna have to use violence, right? I mean, that's just so crazy. But that's what this society is built on. It's built on violence, right? Because that's what our world is built on. But yet we have this, in the ideal world, violence is non-existent, but is it? Will there ever be a time when there is no violence, right? And then we say what? There is no violence against humans, but ants and other pests, there'll be violence against them, right? So as you move up the pole of what is acceptable, then we can eliminate violence. Once you move up the hierarchy of the human violence tolerance pole. So dogs shouldn't have humans submit them to violence. Right. And we all know that just with the dog fighting and things like that, we know that it gets rough. Those of you who don't know, I'll just tell you that, yeah, it can get rough. I've definitely been exposed. Yawn there. But I've definitely been exposed to dog fighting. Just growing up, you definitely get exposed to it, and people fight and they bet on the animals. So there, because dogs are part of the family in this society, right? That's the way we look at dogs, but not everyone, because some people come from a dog fighting culture or rooster fighting culture or whatever, right? And gambling, you just bet on that type of stuff, right? But that type, like just seeing that type of violence, no matter where you even see it from, you get into a stance of it's just like, man, it's that excitement that something just goes through you when you just around it and you just see it. And it's like, yeah, it's like, man, jeez. Like, look, man, you can't get away from this shit. This is just who we are. This is just who we are, man. I mean, it's just crazy. Like, all right, so if video games replace actual physical violence amongst or against each other, like, that's good. But the violence hasn't gone anywhere. And then you look at places that were conquered. And what you find is usually the conqueror is more vicious than, they're willing to be more vicious than the conquered. Right? They're willing to be more vicious. One group is not really willing to fight and to kill, But another group, they are willing to. They're willing to kill. Like, they are willing to kill and just be violent as they need to be. And it's like, so now we're looking at ourselves, and we're looking at, all right, we need to eradicate violence. But it's like, and then, so what? So that some other tribe that's more vicious than us can come along and just take over? They can just take over. They can just kill all the men, rape our women, take our women for slaves, take our boys for slaves and sex toys. Like, that's why we're giving up violence? Like, no. So it's like, but that's why we have a trained army. They train in violence, and they make sure that they're vicious and willing to do whatever it takes to get the job done, right? It's just really no way around it. That's what we're doing. We're preserving the right attitude for defense. If you look at any people that's been conquered, they weren't willing to be as vicious as the invaders. And we just can't have that. Like, that's even like, even with the cops, with this whole cop thing, like, all right, George Floyd, that wasn't right. Like, I think just the other day they was playing the actual cop video. The cop video from, like, maybe the chest cam, or somebody had footage, like cop footage, and they were playing it. This was around dinner time, and like, I just was like, nah, man. I had to mute it. Like, Like, man, because, I know they say that he robbed some pregnant lady and he put a gun to her stomach. I know that's what they're saying, right? It was a group. He led a group of thugs into this lady's house. She was pregnant. I get that, but you know what? He didn't rape her. If he did time for it, he did time for it. Like, that still doesn't justify what he went through. And man, I just couldn't listen to it. Right? So even with me saying that, like, our cops, we can't take away the chokehold. The chokehold is how you control. We can't take away that control. We can't. We need to educate our cops. Every situation is not this situation, right? And so just having power, what did Uncle Ben say? With great power comes great responsibility. Like, that's what Uncle Ben said. And he's right. So if you're a cop, like, man, you have a great responsibility to know when to use certain force. Right? But like, I've watched videos where they roll up on certain cars. Like, it's what is that show? The Andy Dick show? What's that show with the cop and they do the whistle? Right? I would whistle, but it comes out loud in the it comes out loud in what is it? Because I think Andy Dick might be an actual comedian or something. Yeah. So what was that show? And they were in the town of Mayberry or something like that. I think it was Mayberry. The Andy Griffith. So the Andy Griffith show, right? So you got some cops that's rolling up on some straight killers, right? They rolling up like they on the Andy Griffith show. And they get gunned down. And like, man. So you look at that situation, you say, yo, so what could you have done, or what could they have done that would have allowed them to go home to their family? Right? And it's like, yo, so maybe if they was a little bit more cautious, right? You come up with all of these type of things where you're saying like, okay, maybe if they were this, if they were that, right? Yo, then this is what will put them in a position so that they can go home. Right? If you talking about the cops who, I think they handcuffed the guy. They didn't check him thoroughly. They handcuffed him. This happened in West Virginia, and it was a big thing about it. So they handcuffed him with his hands in front. His hands wasn't even behind his back. Right? His hands aren't there. So he handcuffed with his hands in front, and he got the Glock, or he got the 45. Who knows? And he kills the cops. Right? So you have situations like this where, look, man, cops, they going through some crazy stuff, right? So it's like, yo, you, to take on a killer, to take on these wolves, like, yo, you gotta be a wolf, right? And it's like, yo, or to catch a wolf, you gotta be a man. That's who catch wolves. Like, not only do wolves defeat wolves, but men with their brains defeat wolves. So, yo, you gotta be a Homo sapien, a thinking man, right? Like, yo, that's what you gotta be. That's how you catch a wolf. That's how you catch a shark. Not by becoming a shark, but by becoming a thinking man. So I feel like I said, even with all of this, with the movement, like, yo, man, we can't neuter our cops. We just can't. Like, yo, we can't, man. We can't neuter the cops, man. We just can't, because I'm telling you, like, yo, I've been around killers. I've been around wolves. And that's what they, like, yo, that aggression, like that toughness, that everything that people are seeing from the cops that they don't like, yo, that's what it takes. That's what it takes. You going up against some of these guys that I know, like, yo, man, you gotta put your knee in their neck. Like, yo, you just have to. And you need to hold it there for 8 to 10 minutes. Like, some of these guys, like, yo, that's what you need to, but not all of them, right? George, nah. Like, yo, so what do you do to make sure that those who need that that need that type of aggression or force, what do you do? And it's like, yo, it's the training. So we don't stop. I've seen cops, like, yo, they had cops on the news in West Virginia. Like, yo, this one cop, he took a girl, drove the girl or followed the girl back to her house, went in her house, had sex with her, came out, went back on the job. Right? So what we're saying is power corrupts. Right? Absolute power corrupts absolutely. So we have to educate, we have to train constantly about some of these pitfalls now, and we have to come up and have to figure out, okay, what can we do to deter some bad people from becoming cops so that they're not abusing their power. So that's the focus. But to neuter the cops, nah, man. Like, yo, that's not what you want, man. You got certain type of killers around, and they just doing whatever and running amok and just doing whatever they want and causing just the neighborhood and the value of life to drop. I'm telling you, man, that's tough. And you need tough cops. But then at the same time, like, what you get is a lot of cops allow that to happen. Right? Like, they allow it. Because if you look at, like, if we go back to the beginning of this conversation, we're talking about the black neighborhood. And when I say the black neighborhoods, I'm just talking about the rough ones, because they're like I said, they're all over. If we go anywhere, there's a neighborhood that's that people like, yo, you don't want to go in there after dark. You don't want to go in there during whatever time. Like, yo, you want to be very careful. And I mean, I haven't heard of the Sicilian one. I haven't heard of the Italian one. I haven't heard of the Scandinavian one. Right? Do they exist? I'm sure they do. Like, is there a trailer park somewhere in America that no matter who goes in there, like, yo, they gonna have a problem. Maybe somebody gonna try to rob them or shoot them, or, like, I'm sure there is somewhere. But that somewhere, like, yo, there are a lot of black neighborhoods like that, and the cops are allowing this stuff to happen. Like, even if we look at the last narc, like the cops and all that stuff was corrupt, and they was allowing that type of stuff to happen. All of the quote unquote bad stuff, they was allowing it to happen. They were just talking about how they were getting a certain group. It was a special group that were, I guess, I don't know if they were undercover or if they were just regular military, like Mexican military. But maybe 85 to 95% of them were linked in the cartel somehow, some way. Right? So the cartel, they have infiltrated all of this stuff, right? It's like, man, like, yo, man, this is just corrupt. It's corrupt. And that's what's going on even in these neighborhoods, these black neighborhoods that's rough, that people don't want to go to. It's like the police, it's not even that somebody, that there's some type of infiltration. It's not even infiltration. It's just plain, look, let's just leave this situation the way it is, right? And why? And you feel like, okay, because it's like you gotta contain the violence somewhere, right? So we look at it with video games. So we have violence in video games, and we're expressing ourselves through video games, then these young kids are not fighting each other out in the street physically, right? So they're getting this aggression, they're getting out this rage in the video game, so that they're not actually doing it in the public and exposing us, right? So you have it. Yo, where's the outlet? The outlet is here. So now we looking at it from society standpoint. It's like, and we just said that it doesn't matter that this type of violence has been going on all throughout the world, right? It's been going on all throughout the world. No matter where we go in time, there's young kids fighting each other and just committing violence. No matter what, no matter you go through history, no matter where you go, you're gonna find some wars, and it's crazy. But like, yo, that's who's participating in these wars. It's kids. It's not like it's 30-year-old men, 50-year-old men, right? Like what we see now, as far as war and the modern warfare, Like what we see now, like this is all new. Right? The people who caused the war, they're not the age, they're not the same age of the people who fight the war. Right? So if you say like, yeah, man, but there's some soldiers in the army now that's like 30 and 40, right? But who's causing the war? Who says, yo, we're going to war? Right? It's going to be the president. It's going to be leaders. And these leaders and the president, they're not in their 30s. They're in their 50s. They're in their 60s. They're in their 70s. That's who's causing. And when I say causing, I mean that's who's sending XYZ to war, right? People in their 50s, 60s, and 70s. They're not out there. People in their 50s, 60s, and 70s are not out there fighting wars, right? So who do you get to fight the wars? And it's kids. And before, like I said, before modern warfare, before you had these ages where you said, okay, look, all right, you got to be 18. You got to be this. Before that, look, it was, join. It was join. Yo, join. You trying to serve? You trying to fight for your country? Join. Right? Like, yo, that's what time it was. And just looking at when me and growing up, that's who was fighting the most was kids. As we got older, you stopped fighting. Right? And now you look at like a lot of adults, they shoot, right? They shoot each other. So just the invention of the gun has changed the landscape drastically when we talk about violence, right? Drastically. And here, remember we were talking about with Boost, and he was talking about how women were bombing buildings in the UK, right? Just for their right to vote. Then he says the women's suffrage movement. And how it relates in today's troubles. So just me being ignorant to the women's suffrage movement, I can imagine that it's going to be not having the ability to vote, being treated like second-class citizens, right? It's going to be marches. It's going to be protesting. It's going to be wanting to be treated equally. Just looking at women in violence is going to be crazy because like I said with the middle school, that strength secures safety, right? The bigger you are, the stronger you are, the more safer you're going to be. And women usually will have a hard time because they're not putting on muscle like men. Now, if you get some type of testosterone therapy, replacement therapy, then you can really bulk up. But just naturally, that's going to be hard, right? They were even talking about how Olympics, like women Olympic winners, medal winners who've won like 13 and 14 different medals, that their records have been beaten by high school boys, right? Like high school boys is beating it, let alone an Olympic level athlete man in his prime. So I bring that up because like that's going to be a huge problem, and we already know it just from the last episode. We already know from listening to the different stories of abuse. Like, man, like it's tough, and it's so tough that we don't even know. Or like I by no means did I say all the stories that I know and that I heard. I just felt like, man, this is definitely a downer type of situation and a conversation, and I wanted to move on to another point, but I could have easily talked about just the abuse on one show just for 2 hours, 2+ hours if I wanted to, and then on the next one talk about the wolves, right? I could have easily did that, but it's like, look, you're just beating a dead horse. The main thing is like, yo, this type of stuff happens, but you can only imagine, right? Like, you think about the stories that I've heard, but what about the ones that I didn't hear? Right? There are some stories that I didn't hear. There's a lot of stories from a lot of girls that I didn't hear. Just the fact that counselor was telling me about a student and how her dad was, just abusing her like that. Now, I've never met a girl who told me that, right? But that doesn't mean that I've never met a girl who that has happened to, right? There's a girl, I'm sure, that I've met in my life who that's her story. But the embarrassment and just whatever is just so great that they don't want to talk about it. Or they just didn't feel like talking to me about it, right? Maybe they talked to somebody else. So it's like, yo, like this type of stuff is prevalent in when you can't physically fight somebody off, then it really just makes it worse. And then that in turn leads into the gun. Like we were saying, like the gun has changed the field, just changed leverage. It gave women and people who are not usually stronger the leverage to protect themselves. So, we're thinking, all right, well, that's all we need. So we don't need the cops, because if we got guns, then we can defend our, if there's some modern day conqueror who wants to try to take over using force, like, yo, we band together and we get our weapons. And it's like, yeah, man, I hear you, but it's just not that cut. It's just not that black and white. It's just not that dry. Yo, this is what they gonna do. They're gonna come over. They're gonna scream. Like, nah, man. Nah, you want to strike fear and terror in the people. Like, then that's what you're gonna be focusing on. So you're gonna be doing something that's different. So, it's definitely a crazy situation. And when we look at the world now and we just see all of this violence, and like I said, it's just a mirror, but it's just a mirror that's been reflecting. It's just been, we've been reflecting for generations. It doesn't matter the race right? Because it's just the human race. So it doesn't matter where you're from, what land you divide up. It doesn't matter. Like, it's a part of us. Violence is a part of us. And I feel like, yo, we can get rid of it. Just because of the threat, you get rid of it, and you come across somebody, or you come across a group that's what they've been training for. That's what they know. It's like, man. Then you want those killers back. Yo, man, where the killers at? We need our own killers, right? So it's hard. Like, even when I think of because you guys know that I want to say that they said that the Pentagon has revealed that they found or recovered an aircraft that's not of here. Right? So they announced that. Let's see. Let's go with announcement. Let's see if that'll. All right. Not made on this earth. So that's the statement, right? That's the statement that the Pentagon released. They released that July 24th. So a few weeks ago, and this was in the New York Times, that they have a top secret Pentagon program, and they recovered something that's not made on this earth. Right? I mean, that's just, that's crazy. Right? This is what the Pentagon is saying this. Not made on this earth. Like, so that means it's made somewhere else, some other life. And, you know, that's another video. I mean, not a video. That's another podcast. We can really get into that. Maybe we can talk about it next week. I don't know. We'll see. I definitely think that's very interesting. Just because who doesn't look up into the sky and say, like, yo, is there life somewhere else? Right? So yeah, we'll definitely get into that. But my point is, now coming from somewhere else, are they following the same type of life pattern that we did, where it's, look, life feeds off of life. Life is in a struggle. It's a struggle to live. It's chaos to live. Are they coming from an environment like that? Because if they are, then they're violent too. They want violence, and they know violence just as well as we do. If they made it this far, they know it more than we do, right? They've been through a lot of violence to get this far, to where you can travel to another planet and not have a problem. You can just go there, right? That's a lot of time. That's a lot of evolution. That's a lot of violence. So you know, we'll definitely see how that plays out, but it's definitely challenging, right? How do we move on now that so if we acknowledge that this is a part of us, how do we move on so that the key situation, that doesn't happen, right? The George Floyd, that doesn't happen, that the countless women, right? It's not just the males, the countless women, that doesn't happen. Like, how do we move forward? Right? It's like, yo, all right, if we think that one day we're going to evolve to the point that we no longer need violence because we can communicate, like, how does that happen? So, that's definitely an interesting question and an interesting topic. I definitely leave that with you guys. How do we get there? Because most of our evolution comes from environment and comes from diet. Right? Like, people talk about Elon Musk and he's a genius and he's this and he's that. Well, we've had several geniuses in human history, right? Who come up with something and they have some type of breakthrough, but it's not like their genes. It's not like they breed or, you know, have 1,000 or 1,000,000 kids. They have 1,000,000 kids who all grow up and being groomed in an academia situation. That doesn't happen. All the geniuses and all that stuff that we've had, they still come out sporadically. We don't even know, who's going to breed the next genius. We don't even know. So, like, that's still random. And it's nothing where it's like true genius. They're just improved or they're just at the top of whatever their field, right? So compared to these other 10 guys, so humans is billions, right? But it's 10 people in this field here, and they're the number one in this field. It's like, you can't eliminate the rest of these billions of people who are not in that field. So Elon Musk is in whatever field he's in, right? And they say that he's pretty knowledgeable about a bunch of subjects, right? So, okay, you got him. He's knowledgeable about a bunch of subjects that all pertain really to a certain thing. But you can't say that he's at the top of all of these billions of people, right? Because people, they just in all types of different things. So like Arslan Ash, he's like the number one Tekken guy. Arslan Ash and Knee, right? I guess that's why they give it to Knee, because Knee has been consistent over time, right? He's been consistently whipping the West and consistently whipping some of the people, I guess the East, right? So he's been consistently doing this. So that's why we give it to him, even though Arslan Ash can beat him. He has beat him. So just because they're not mathematicians or physicists, look, they're still the top in what they do and what they love, right? So that's all I'm saying is that, genius and all of that type of stuff, it's not transferable. Like, it's just not. It's not. The best thing you can do is just keep somebody in a certain environment and groom them to nurture them to be a certain thing. But it's not transferable. It's not like a evolution. Oh man, it's evolved now. Nah, the bottleneck is so huge that, okay, you got one mutation from out of this billion. So if that one has a kid, even if he had 10 kids, that's not going to make a dent in the population. And those 10 kids have 10 kids. Like, it's still not going to make a dent in human movement. It's just not, right? So that's something different. That's for another cast. So we'll see what we talk about. But ultimately, violence is who we are, and we need, if we move on, right? If we evolve from this state, how will we use violence, right? And just even in our lives, not even thinking about a million years from now or a billion years, right? We know that in a million years that we will look different. That's what we believe anyway, because that's what has happened in the past. But I think language has neutralized, and it has perpetuated as well. So, the answer and the problem and the solution all lives in one bed, right? So just looking at it from us now, okay, how can Bo handle and treat violence? And I think just for me, I have to be aware that it's not every situation doesn't require violence. It doesn't. Somebody cut me off from work. That doesn't require violence. If somebody says something and they're upset, so they, say something to me, that doesn't require violence. But if someone tries to inflict violence on me to either get ahead or to take something from me or my family, I have to be ready to succeed their standards, right? I have to be ready to go beyond what they're capable of, because if not, then that could be the end. That could be the end of me. That could be the end of my family, right? So I definitely need to be aware and be calm and study and train. I gotta train. I gotta study and be comfortable when I'm put in situations to be ready to think, right? Just not even looking at 1,000 years from now, at 1,000,000 years from now, looking at just tomorrow. Stay calm, stay level-headed, but train for the most savages of savages. Like, train for him, train for her, right? But also train to be calm and to know, okay, this is when it's time to use it. So we'll leave it there. We can keep going on till the break of dawn, on and on and on and on. So yeah, that's that. Again, I'm not really worried about sponsors. I am working on a project now that I'm really excited about. So once I finish with that, then I'm going to probably put that as a sponsor and talk. So I'll talk about that in the beginning and the end of the show. But yeah, that's that. You guys have a good week. Definitely think about what you can do to. I can't even tell you that you should think about what you can do, but definitely be aware of violence. Right? Be aware. Confront your own violence. Confront the things that you've been through, and if you have a family, definitely don't use that against your family or on your family, right? Don't use that. It's going to be tough, especially for you younger guys, because you're so close to violence. As a young guy, it's just oozing through your blood, the testosterone, and the machismo. Like, man, you're primed for this. So it's going to be tough. So definitely think about that. And I would say, my advice to you would be, just be aware that violence doesn't solve and cure everything, and that these are people's lives, mainly like family. And with strangers, you just don't know what people are going through. Everybody is genuinely good. I believe that even Hitler, there's somebody in the world at some point who was like, yo, man, he's really a good guy, right? You just got to get to know him. So I believe that everyone has some good in them, but different beliefs can take you down different paths. And once you start getting into who's good and who's evil, and we see that'll mess you up. So I try not to think about who's good and who's evil. So just my advice to some of you young guys, mainly the ones that's out of the country and who's living in crazy situations, just hang in there. Do what you gotta do. Sometimes you guys gonna have to use some type of violent acts, but don't let that define you. Just don't hold on to that. Try to get away as fast as you can, as soon as you can, and leave that stuff behind you. Right? That's not you forever. It doesn't have to be you forever. So even if you've done some bad stuff, you've hurt people, you've killed some people, like that doesn't have to define you. That doesn't have to just be you, who you are, right? Like there was a part of you in your youth, and you probably say that he was naive, he was stupid, he didn't know what the world was really like. So of course, why so many 5-year-olds believe in Santa Claus, right? So nah, man, he was right? The 5-year-old you, the 7-year-old you who wanted peace and just wanted to be safe and wanted everybody to be safe. Like, he was right. You weren't naive, right? We're speaking to that person because I believe that all of us felt like that at some point, that you can still be that person, right? So I challenge you to be that person now, or to be that person tomorrow, right? A lot of times now is tough, right? Especially you're in the army, you fighting a war. This podcast is just your little way of stepping out for a second and just kind of seeing how they do things in a different country. So our hats go off to you too. I don't look at you like you're bad and you're evil. You're not evil. I'm not evil. Right? We just We just aren't talking to each other. We don't understand each other. We don't know. So maybe we can start to talk. Maybe we can start to get to know each other. So that's my 2-cent rant to specific people that may be going through some crazy situations, and just seeing all types of crazy stuff. Like, yo, man, I'm with you. I've experienced it myself, so it's tough, but that's that. Hope you guys stay safe. Hope you guys are okay out there, and that's that. And until next week, yeah, you guys have a good week, guys and girls and gals. Have a good week, and Reese's Pieces.